of the creation pipeline, whether it's in editing, in CGI, and visual effects. There's AI in different parts of the process that are really transforming how video creators and producers make content. So here there's an example of a character being animated just from video footage on your phone. It's automating processes that maybe would have been tedious in the past. And there's also lots of different methods of creating these AI videos that are enhancing creativity. So people are able to start from a text prompt like we're used to in images and like I showed in music, but also people are able to start with videos that then transform into different settings and different scenarios. Ultimately, this is increasing flexibility and increasing the ability that you're able to create and to really flex your creative muscles. Now it's becoming more embedded into different softwares and workflows, and it will continue to be a part of the process going forward. So despite these crazy trends and technology that's coming out and a huge use to creators, recently music producers were surveyed and about 25% of them have used AI. So it's this super powerful tool, but not a lot of people are using it or are knowledgeable about how to use it and how to implement it. And that's where I think it's really important to level up your freelance game and think about how you can use these tools to enhance your work. So I think what these tools allow us to do is now video makers, musicians can now really be in essence what they are, which is storytellers and tastemakers. You see, at the crux of video creation is about telling a story and bringing your vision to life. And with these AI tools, you're able to do that and get one step closer as costs are reduced. And again, complexity can go to a whole other level. So things like your vision, your sense of curation, and also your ability to understand briefs and clients that you work with are going to be super important. It's now possible for many different people to create incredible footage, but it's on you to understand what's the right project that needs to be done, what customer are you speaking to, and how can you ultimately create that vision to make it something that's a great fit for that piece of work. So creatives in music and video will have to leverage these AI tools, embed them into their workflows, which some softwares are doing, but others you need to step outside of the box and really do that for yourselves. And ultimately be comfortable working with the outputs of these tools also. So being ready to take someone send you a demo that was made with AI and being able to transform that into something with your touch and your taste in it. So like I said, super exciting time to be working in the worlds of music and video. And I think the possibilities are endless.
All right. Thanks, Adam. So that's a wrap from us for the Verticals team. We chatted today about different trends in the freelance community and which areas are less affected by AI. We then heard from Jackie about different ways to leverage AI in different domains and how things are going to look in the future between the intersection of different services in AI and freelancing. And we heard some deep dives from Adam into the world of music and audio and video and animation. So thank you to you all for joining us today, but more importantly, thank you very much for being a part of the Fiverr community, and we hope you continue to do so. So thanks a lot and have a good day.
Wellness break next.
Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Mo, and I'm here today to talk to you about freelance and remote worker burnout. In the air, you can work from anywhere, but literally it feels like you're working from everywhere. The lines between work and life blur, and slowly, without realizing it, burnout on 24/7. Now, burnout is no longer just about statistic. If you think about the impact, both physical and mental, as well as the impact on your productivity. When we think about burnout, we might assume it's something that happens only after years or months and months of high pressure work. But for some, to work from anywhere. However, with this freedom comes new challenges that lead to burnout faster than in a traditional office setting. So why is it that freelance and remote workers are more vulnerable to burnout compared to those working in traditional work settings? There are four key factors. Number one, blurred boundaries. Unlike office work, there's no physical space separating work and life. Many remote workers find themselves working longer hours because they can't turn off. Two, isolation. Without the social interaction of an office environment, feelings of loneliness and disconnection start to arise, and that impacts their mental health as well. Three, overcommitment. Freelancers often take on more projects, fearing that turning down work now will cost them future opportunities later. Four, constant availability. The expectation to respond to messages, emails at any time. And stress, fatigue, and even physical symptoms like headaches and sleep disturbances. Here's the good news. One tool really stands out at combating burnout, and that's mindfulness. Now, you might think mindfulness means you're meditating on a mountaintop. It's so much more than that. And really, it's the practice of being fully present in the moment without judging yourself for it. It's about training your mind to focus on what's happening right here, right now in front of me, rather than worrying about the future or distracting. This mindfulness helps activate the body's relaxation response, reducing that stress hormone cortisol, counteracting that fight or flight response in your body. Also, it increases emotional resilience. So practicing mindfulness can actually help you recognize the early signs of stress and overwhelm, giving you the tools that you need to pause and address before burnout sets in. Number three, it boosts productivity. Breathing, a short guided meditation, or simply sitting in stillness. This ritual helps you sets calm tone for the day and reduces the likelihood of you rushing into stress. Take regular work breaks every now and then. Step away from your screen for just 2 to 3 minutes, practicing a mindful movement or breathwork, or simple during work and after hours. Mindfulness can also be practiced just by staying present while using technology, focusing only on one task at a time. Instead of juggling emails, calls, projects simultaneously, just zoom in on what you're doing right now. These practices might seem small, but they compound over time, creating a shield against burnout, stress, anxiety, worry. Now, what can you do right now? Well, just by taking a few minutes, in fact, let's take a minute right now and let me give you a very simple practice that you can do anytime, anywhere. Okay? Let's start by just feel yourself in your chair. And if you're watching, go ahead and do this practice with me. Take a deep breath in through the nose. And try and relax so that you feel a sense of grounded. Now, every time we breathe in, I want you to think, I feel clear and calm. And then every time you breathe out, I want you to feel that you have a sense of groundedness and safety throughout your day, throughout your work. Okay, so let's start with the feet. Working through the legs, any tension that you feel, working your way up through your calves. Take a breath in through the nose. I feel clear and to how your spine, how your hips feel. Again, let's take a nice deep breath in. Your brain actually doesn't know the difference between what is real and what you tell it. So what you tell your brain really, really matters, and neuroscience research confirms this. So as we breathe in, I'm feeling clear and focused. As we breathe out, I feel grounded and calm. Now, as you work your way up through the body, relaxing every muscle as you get to, you're eventually going to get to your shoulders. Those of us that do computer work hold a lot of tension here. What I want you to do is I want you to squeeze your shoulders as tight as you can up to your ears, okay? And then take a big deep breath in as you're doing that. Squeeze and relax. Let it go. Shake your arms out. Feel your body getting that sense of calm relaxation. Let's take another deep breath in together. I feel clear and focused. And out. I feel calm and grounded. You can do this anytime, anywhere. It can take you throughout the day. Any of these little mindful breaks can help you not only have better focus, less anxiety, less stress, it can actually improve your productivity. And who doesn't want that when we're doing our freelance and remote work? We always want to give it our best. I'm Dr. Mo. Please check out letscope.com for free 60 days.
We're back for the second half of International Freelancer Day. We hope you took a breather. And speaking of breathers, we hope you took advantage of Cope's free 60-day group coaching offer to help you manage the stressful parts of life and work. But even though life can be stressful, we can always change our course. And our next session is all about the people who leapt from corporate life into freelance life and rocketed their careers. Today, we're joined by Grace Abbott, a marketing freelancer who has earned over $1 million in her career, and Sarah Jutras, a tech veteran turned design freelancer helping influential, mission-driven companies like Instacart and IDEO nail their emotional UX UI design. We'll dive into how they made their transitions and how they started to manage their careers. For our audience, we'd love to hear how you got your start or how you earned your first $1,000 on Fiverr. Feel free to let us know in the comments. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. My first question is, how did you assess and plan for the risks associated with leaving your stable job?
Yeah, I can go first on that one. So first of all, would definitely recommend that everybody has a strong sense of what their monthly expenses look like so that they can plan for how much money they need to make each month with freelance income, and also set aside maybe like 3 to 6 months of expenses so that you don't have to stress about having to make rent and keep yourself alive as you move into your freelance career, especially if you're doing something that revolves around one of your passions. You don't want to put too much pressure on your passions to pay your bills. So really having a strong handle over your financial landscape, putting some money aside for that. And then when you take the leap, make sure you get 1 or 2 clients that you feel like can float you to pay for your baseline expenses.
I really echo what Grace shared as well. I think having like that financial cushion is going to help reduce the risk. It definitely is a risk. I went independent in 2016. I left a full-time corporate job and it was scary. But I think what helped me assessing that situation is just this experimental mindset, knowing that I could always make another decision. And as Grace mentioned, like setting up a few things that were really like a cushion, a safe.
Go back to that leap into freelancing. What advice would you give to someone who's considering making that transition? What would you do the same? What would you have done differently? What would you have changed in general?
One of the first things I'd recommend is to start freelancing on the side on top of your I actually freelanced on the side for about 5 years before I took the leap into full-time freelance. And when I realized I could probably take the leap, I had all this evidence to show me, oh, I know how to get clients. I know how to make extra money. I already have existing relationships who are giving me referrals. So really starting to do that on the side of a full-time job so you don't have to put too much pressure on it while you experiment and get your footing is really smart. And then I'd also say for new freelancers, not to be too picky about the work that you're taking on. I think a big part of freelance is really just feeling the autonomy and mastery and confidence that you can make money on your own, and getting a lot of work under your belt where you're doing that, even if you're working for the types of companies that aren't your dream clients yet, just helps show yourself how capable you are and gets money coming in. And then as you have more credibility, more brand recognition, more projects under your belt, then you can get more selective and say, oh, I only want to work with clients in this industry or that industry. But at first, don't let your ego get in the way of you getting clients.
A lot of the other parts of your business, right? So that you can kind of run successfully. One thing that I wanted to share that I would have done differently this path of independence, just know that community exists and connecting connecting with those people, looking for that help and support with others. It doesn't have to be completely solo. And that wasn't something I was totally aware of in the beginning. Now that I've been in business for 8 years, I've actually sort of had some growth within my business where I leverage outside partners to help me with certain things like bookkeeping, with my taxes. You can do all that in the beginning, and I did, but just knowing that there are other folks on this path that you can kind of share your challenges and your successes with.
This is all the advice I wish I initially you kind of have to do everything yourself. And to the earlier point that Grace made, starting off as a side hustler makes more sense. That way you can do it while you have a 9 to 5. But eventually, as you mature, you can start just delegating some of those tasks that you don't enjoy as much. So let's keep it rolling here. I mean, one thing that a benefit of corporate is like you have a manager to essentially tell you what to do. So next question is, how did you have to change how you manage yourself once you moved into freelance? And Grace, if you want to start with this one, go for
it. And sometimes it's early in the morning or late at night or on Sunday. And if I feel like I have to do something at a certain time, I almost resent having to do it. So being able to give myself time and space to kind of experiment with my energy and see when am I most productive, when can I get things done, and then manage the client's expectations around deadlines and giving them like check-ins so that they're not babysitting me. Instead, I put the clients before a call when I first started freelancing, and then I sort of had to get the sense around like, oh, maybe I'm taking on too much work, or I'm putting it off to the last minute, or I'm forcing myself to work at a time where I don't have energy to do it. So I think experimenting, trial and error, and don't feel like you have to conform into a conventional work system, because now you're in charge of your autonomy, your time, and your deadlines.
So let's go back to the $1 million question. What steps did you take to build your client base both before and after leaving?
Bosses, other collaborators, just kind of connecting with folks and letting them know that I was available for different kinds of design services. That's really important to me in my business today, is just all the relationship management. And I typically like to think about it. There's an onion diagram model that you may have seen before. I like to think about it as like a tree rings of concentric circles. But you have, of course, your innermost circle, people who know you best, the people who would vouch for you. It could be friends, it could be your family. Throughout those concentric rings is key of staying in business, right? And kind of working on this path to independence. Management is really critical.
Totally agree with that. And to piggyback off what you said, Sarah, the closest relationships to you, if you get any work for them, do the best possible job. Like, it's doing the best work on every single project that gets you that referral, that word of mouth. And that's the #1 way to get business and get referrals flowing in. So don't treat any project like it's too small. Even if it's just like a project for your aunt or your friend's sister, do your 100% best job on everything, and you'll keep the referrals flowing.
And that's brilliant advice. And what I've noticed is, yes, initially at launch, those referrals, your network, that's the best way to get leads in and get business. But as you progress, eventually you have to reach out to effectively a cold audience. So in your opinion, your experience, what are the most effective ways to market yourself and your services as a freelancer to a colder audience who may not be aware of you just yet? And Grace, if you don't mind taking lead on that one, that'd be great.
Yeah, this was one of my first moves when I went freelance. I knew that I wanted to work with companies in the beauty industry. And so what I did is I went to a beauty retailer's website, I went to their brands page, and then I went to all the individual brands' websites and I found their contact info. And then I had a spreadsheet of like 30 beauty brands. And I went through each individual brand and kind of figured out what they needed and sent them a customized email saying, looks like you need a new website. I could help like that. Looks like you need influencer marketing. I could help with that. I could help with social. And I sent a ton of cold emails out, really positioning myself differently to different clients based on what I saw that they needed. And cold outreach is really a numbers game. You can't expect to reach out to 5 people and get 5 responses. You really need to respond or reach out to like 30 or 40 people, and then maybe you can expect to get 5 responses back.
Yeah, and let's keep going here with another tough question, which is rates. So Sarah, I want to have you start with this one. So I'm just curious, what strategy have you used to set and negotiate your rates as a freelancer? Because often we undervalue our value, our time, and our talent because we're not used to this. So if you can give some guidance to our audience here, that would be amazing.
Sure. Yeah, I recently gave a free lesson on pricing. I know it's a big pain point for a lot of folks who are getting into freelancing. We're nervous about money. It's uncomfortable to have these conversations sometimes about our finances and about our pricing strategies. The thing that's helped me most is just acknowledging, at least my belief, is that pricing is an art form. It's adjustable. It's negotiable. I actually find that most freelancers underprice, right, where there's a fear of sharing our rates and losing the work. But it's always a discussion. And I think if you're explaining really clearly and articulating what you're providing for that price, for that quote, your value, and having that dialogue with your client, if it's something that they can't budget for and you need to make adjustments, I think that is really possible, in your freelance path. The other piece that Grace and I mentioned at the very beginning of our chat is just, having your own financial planning and understanding your needs versus your goals and giving yourself that baseline so that you can leverage that to adjust and negotiate your rates, knowing, right, what minimums and maximums you might be working towards. So yeah, that's sort of my advice to folks who are thinking about this.
Yeah. And to that end, make sure that you have a sense of your pricing generally before you have conversations with clients. Don't always just be responding to their budget. Otherwise, you're always going to be feeling resentful or trying to figure yourself into a smaller box, settling for lower rates. Have a sense of what your hourly rate is, what your project rates look like, and then be willing to find a win-win with the client. And another thing is you're going to want to think about how taxes figure into your rate. So if you assume you might have to save about 30% for taxes, maybe you add a 30% buffer into your hourly rate so that, if you're charging $60 an hour, you're not having to give up 30% of that for taxes. Instead, maybe you'd add 30% on top of the rate you want to make, and it would make your hourly rate a little bit higher, but you'd have a better cushion for taxes. So make sure to think about that too.
Yeah, I love that. And again, you're helping me avoid all the mistakes, or our audience avoid all the mistakes that I made initially, because before, when someone would ask me what my price was, I would say, oh, it depends, which is not a way to instill confidence. Or I wouldn't say it with confidence, but what I would say is just say it like someone asked you what time it is, like the rate is this. And that way you sound more confident and clear in regards to what you're doing. So we're gonna keep it all rolling here. We're getting some great advice, but Grace, I'm going to kick this one off to you first. Someone out there is listening saying, hey, look, I've tried some of this stuff before and gosh, this is not working for me. So what advice would you give to anyone who's new or just struggling with the transition to freelance work so they can just feel more confident moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about having an experimental mindset. So if one thing isn't working for you, be willing to try something else and don't just assume that you're not a good fit for it. So whether you're attempting cold outreach or you're tapping your existing network, or maybe you're not describing your services clearly enough and clients actually don't understand what you're offering, like be willing to look at all the variables. Maybe you're priced too high, and understand why it may not be working for you, and really start to look at that as data. Like, what success do you have when what happens versus when you get a no, what's at play there. So make it a self-reflective exercise and view everything as an experiment. There's nothing wrong with you, and not getting work is not an indication of your inherent self-worth. It might just be something you need to change around how you're approaching it.
As a designer, I like to think about freelance as a creative practice. And so that really inspires me to use creativity to, as Grace said, try different things. Part of having the autonomy to do things your own way is really, right, discovery, making sure that you're checking in what we had mentioned earlier, sort of how you self-govern, or the things that you need to bring into your work life when you don't have a boss or a manager. I think it is that self-reflection and giving yourself time to look back, not just looking forward and having your set goals, but to respond to how things are working and what you've done to be able to influence the decisions you're making moving forward. So all of that becomes really important, and it can be really worth the risk. I think freelance is worth the risk, but obviously you have to find what fits best for you. And so I encourage everyone to take the jump and at least try it on for size, and see if you can make it fit your life.
So there's a lot of advice for people who are entering freelance, but what is a piece of advice that you wish you had during the midway point in your freelance career? So after you're over the initial shock, the uncomfortableness, and you're getting some traction, what advice do you wish you had during the midway point of your career?
I love this question. I think that designing your systems is just as important as the work itself, the work that you're doing for your clients. It's totally natural to not focus on those things when you're first getting started. It's just sort of that traction of like, can I even do this? And do I like doing this? And then I think having that reflection of like, how do I want to do this? And how do I want to make changes and have, SOPs, those standard operating procedures for my own business operations, staying really organized and having internal systems, I think is really helpful and supportive. So how do you onboard your clients? How do you send your invoices? How do you get testimonials and stay in touch with people? How are you managing those client relationships? So all those details of designing your systems.
One piece of advice that I would have is to give yourself a raise. So a lot of times you're in the flow of charging a rate that you feel good about and people are saying yes to it. But if you're midway through your career, let's say you've been doing it for 3 or 4 years, you've gotten better at what you do, you a raise for that is you. So you have to then start to go to bat and ask for a higher price for your services. And you'll be surprised, like when you pitch in higher rates, a lot of times people just say yes. And it surprises you that, oh my gosh, I could have been asking for this rate the whole time and I was playing it small. So I think have a sense of, you can evolve your rates, you can ask for more money. And that doesn't mean you have to lay off the clients that are paying you a lower rate, but you can start to experiment with higher rates because your worth is actually worth more money. And that will start to move you into a bracket where you are earning more money. And a little mindset piece around that too is, I realized that I was kind of giving all my power away to my clients, and I was feeling so reliant on my clients to pay me so that I could make money, as opposed to realizing I'm the asset. I have something to give. People want to pay me to provide a service for them. And that mindset shift really helped me get into my confidence around asking for what my work was worth.
So as you can tell, I clearly have a lot of questions, but our audience does too. So I'm going to grab some of those right now. And Grace, I'm going to toss this one over to you first. And here we go. The question is, how do you recommend freelancers manage their finances to ensure long-term stability? And this is pretty important because initially it's got a lot of feast or famine. So how can we just manage our finances better so we don't have as much anxiety around that?
Yeah, I would say make sure to save about 30% of your income for taxes, especially your first year. You don't know how much your taxes will be. So having a cushion there, and then over time, you'll start to be able to anticipate it a bit better. And also, be a good saver and put a little bit of money away every month so that you can continue to add to your cushion or kind of like safety net in case you have months where you have less income coming in. And also, I find a great hack is to have 1 or 2 clients on an ongoing retainer that you have an ongoing relationship with instead of it being one-off popcorn projects every month.
And I think too, leverage tools to help you. I know when I first started out, I didn't honestly have a lot of coders. I think one of the things that's pretty amazing about freelancing is all the new skills that you will learn. And so learning about how to manage my money really happened because I became a freelancer. There are a lot of tools, whether you're using QuickBooks or FreshBooks, right? These online banking tools for you to manage the ins and outs, look at a profit and loss statement, your P&L, how much you're bringing in, how much are you spending to run your business, and even utilizing a tool like a cash flow spreadsheet just to kind of see where money is forecasted to come in at. I think that can all really support you in looking at your overall big financial picture for your income goals.
It's sound advice here. And as we think about just growing our business in general, how do you identify new areas of growth or even specialization that can enhance your freelance business? And Grace, if you don't mind grabbing that one first, that'd be great.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to experiment with different types of services. You don't have to stay consistent doing one thing for the rest of your life. You can try different variations of services within your skill set. So like if you're a graphic designer, you could try positioning yourself as a web designer or designing Instagram ads or e-blasts or doing more creative conceptual projects. Like really learn about all the ways that you can utilize your skills to provide different services and try them out to see what you like, and also try and learn some complementary skill sets. Like maybe you want to learn how to do some copywriting so you can include it in your graphic design projects.
I'd love to add as well, like an area of growth might be partnering with others. So, working with someone, pitching different kinds of projects, getting a little bit of education through their skill set, if it is complementary, can also be an option that you can explore.
So we're approaching time here, but a really important question just came in. So I want to make sure we get to this. And Sarah, if you don't mind taking lead on that, that'd be amazing. What is the most important lesson you've learned from your entire freelancing experience?
Big question. I think that that it's possible to design your life and design your work to fit your life, to have a work experience that aligns with your values. I know that's something that didn't always feel possible when working for others, but you have the ability to craft that for yourself. So I think that's probably been the biggest lesson and most impactful piece of being a freelancer for me. And something that really inspires me to keep on this path.
Yeah. And my biggest lesson is that if you really want to be your own boss, then you need to manage your clients instead of letting them manage you. You don't want it to just feel like now you have 20 bosses who are constantly checking in and asking you what you're doing. Really set up the system so that you can manage up. So that you're giving them the status updates, you're sending the calendar invites for the meetings, you are being really professional and really showing them how you work instead of letting them boss you around like you're an employee. Otherwise, you just have like 10 small jobs and bosses.
Yeah. Love it. So we're approaching time here, so we have to end the conversation, but there were plenty of good notes and I appreciate it. And tell us in the comments, what are you taking away? Grace and Sarah, this has been great. I appreciate you. We have our final conversation of the day coming up in just a few minutes. We'll be chatting with freelancer influencer Jamie Brindle to talk about developing long-term client relationships. So we're building on top of the conversation we just had. Grab a cup of water and we'll be right back. We're on to our last conversation for the day. We'll be discussing how freelancers can win long-term clients and grow their business. I'm excited to be joined by Jamie Brindle. Over the last 16 years, Jamie has worked with a wide variety of clients and freelancers with practical tips and insights. Welcome, Jamie. We're excited for this conversation.
Excited to be here. It's a good day to be a freelancer.
I agree, especially on the International Freelancer Day. So let's get into it, because this is a very common question that comes up, and I'll just kick things off here. More clients versus more work. What should you optimize for?
That's a great question, and it's a very important distinction, right? Because so many freelancers that I have had the pleasure of having a conversation with, the first question they ask is, how do I get more clients? And I always ask them, specifically, are you looking for more clients or more work? Within the past, and that's really the foundation of a scalable freelance business. So, long answer short, ideally you're optimizing for both, but optimizing for more work, still getting the benefits of the freelance lifestyle.
Vacation. I got to add that to my to-do list. So what are the key traits that separate a great long-term client from a short-term?
Who's growing a business, who's looking for strategic partnership, or is this somebody who's just looking, for kind of a one-off? Conducive to a bountiful long relationship. That's not to say forsake those folks altogether. I mean, long, beautiful relationships have started in unusual places throughout the history of humankind. So there's definitely potential there, but there is an art to spotting that. But really kind of the meta answer to the question is that you're the difference. It's not necessarily the client that's the difference, right? So the freelancer, to place the onus on the client to be either a long-term client or a short-term client is kind of thinking of it incorrectly. Really, it's a freelancer should be optimizing every at-bat, every single time that they have an engagement with a lead or a potential client. That freelancer should be thinking, okay, how do I turn this one-time client into a lifetime client, right? What problems are they going to be solving for 6 months from now that I can start building offers for? How can I be valuable to this person even when I'm not on the clock, right? Like when this project is over, what's a piece of intel that I can be out there, finding for them, sourcing for them, and bringing it to them, right? So it really is. It's on the freelancer to build these relationships. The clients, they've got a lot going on, right? They're not sitting around trying to think of new ways to engage you and new reasons to spend money with you. That's on you.
And I think you make a great point. When you're proactively giving them information that'll help them, that's when you shift from being a freelancer to a thought partner. And they're much more likely to keep a thought partner around than a freelancer. But let me tell you a quick story. I'm going to ask a question that's related to it. One of my first big clients back then is like they had a good retainer, right? Things were going well enough, but after a while they just started frustrating me, and I was complaining about it to my wife. And after a while, she's like, "I am sick of hearing you talk about this. You need to stop working with them." So that's how I assess that I should end that client relationship. But in your opinion, your experience, how do you assess whether a client relationship is worth maintaining in the long term, as opposed to maybe just offboarding them?
Right. So let's get the most obvious one out of the way first, right? Is if this person is just a classically toxic individual, or this is a client that's just not good for you at all, life's too short. that's the beauty of freelancing. You're setting the rules of this game, right? It's choose your own adventure. You know, you should have there are tens of millions of other people, other brands, other businesses in the world that you know that will spend money with you. So, you know, approach this from you know, a whatever the opposite of a scarcity mindset is, an abundance mindset, and just cut them loose, right? There's life's too short. But there are some other things to consider too, beyond the toxic client use case. And that's, you know, if you've grown faster than they have, right? There might be an instance where, you know, the rate you're commanding, you know, and the time that you have to spend on a project, you know, the rate you're commanding may exceed what they can afford, and the time you have to spend on a project may be less than what they want, you know, and that's a good indication it's time for a difficult conversation. My similar story to yours, Terry, is, you know, when I first got started, or maybe a couple years into my freelance journey, I had a client that was working me so hard, right? I didn't have time to do anything else. I didn't have time to develop my business. I was essentially, you know, I was an employee for rent. You know, I was getting they were getting all the benefits of having an employee, but not, you know, any of the negatives. And it was the opposite for me. And so I had to have a conversation with the CEO where it was basically, I've got to double my rate here. You know, I've got to double this thing. And it was, I remember I spent all day, I had index cards. I was ready for this chat because I was about to be asking for a hefty sum. And, you know, after a long pause after I explained everything, the CEO just said, okay, that makes sense. Is you don't need to lose the client. You just need to bring the rate up so that you can bring in subcontractors maybe to help with the workload, or, you know, or justify keeping them on and spending the overtime on your business.
Okay, I'll tell another quick story and then ask a question. So back when I worked as a digital marketer, let's pretend it's Q1, I would put plans in place for Q4 that my client needed me to do. And that's how I increased the lifetime value. So just from your perspective and your experience, how do you build a customer journey that increases the lifetime value of a client?
That's great. Yeah, good tactic, Terry. But yeah, it's absolutely something that you need to be thinking about and building with intentionality. You know, I've thought of the customer journey as a game. If I can gamify it internally, this is something, you know, obviously we don't share what we're doing with them. We don't share that we're thinking of this as a game, but we've built out kind of this journey that takes a problem, and then stage 4 being somebody who's paying you your piece on the board here, and you're gonna walk a lead through those stages, right? So stage 1, the objective is to get somebody in this case to a lead, is that you have their contact info, right? Stage 1 tactic. I would caution if you're too early in business for that. Freebies in exchange for emails on social media, things like that. But once you have the contact information, you know, that piece gets now moved to stage 2. That person's a lead, right? Now the objective is to turn them from a lead into a client, stage 3, where you're getting them to pay you money to solve a problem. This is where Fiverr starts you, by the way. By paying Fiverr your commission, right? You're renting their stage 1 efforts. They're the ones that are converting strangers into leads for you, right? And for leads that you've acquired on your own, This nurturing stage is going to be a little different for every potential client. Some may be ready to just skip ahead to 3 where they're paying you money. Others will need more attention. So, that's kind of more art than science. Stage 3, right? They've paid you money to solve a problem for them. Now your objective is to get them to stage 4, to be continually hiring you. And this is what you talked about, Terry, getting somebody from Q1 to Q4, right? And we mentioned earlier, is a client's not just sitting around thinking of new reasons to pay you money. That's your job, right? You need to continue to build new offers. You need to continue to be valuable. And that's something, again, that's going to be unique for every client. Of course, over time, and if you have a niche, if you have a specific industry you serve, that time horizon will be shorter, but over time you'll start to kind of identify what the likely next thing somebody's going to need after you've done X for them. Usually they want one of these 3 things next, and once you do those, usually they want one of these 3 things next, right? So you can get really efficient there. But I urge you not to over optimize and to kind of like try to automate it, because it is going to be unique to the client, right? And it is going to require those conversations in the little 5 minutes before a meeting, right? That's what my dad used to always tell me. It's you want to show up to a meeting early because it's the 5 minutes before where the magic happens, right? Where you get to ask questions about what they're up against this year. Hey, what are some of the cool initiatives you guys are doing? Hey, what are some of the problems you're solving for? Or I just read this thing in this trade about this issue that the industry's having. Are you guys feeling any of that, right? You're just gathering intel, right? And you're just adding it to the list of things that you're going to be developing offers for. And then ideally, before you deliver on that first project, you've got the next one queued up. Hey, well, because once you deliver, it's a lot harder to get them on the phone. It's a lot harder to get them in a meeting, right? So, but if you can, few days out, few weeks out, whatever however your projects work, say, ooh, can we grab a quick 15 because I got something for you, right? I think this is going to make a lot of sense. Or I just did this execution for another client. Immediately, it made me think of you guys. I'd love to chat about it, right? Go ahead and get that thing going. And then do it again. Once that project's done. But that's how I like to think about it, about building that lifetime value.
Yeah. And that's a great process. And again, it's like when you're going from a freelancer to a thought partner and then saying, okay, I'll implement the thoughts that I came up with that we all agreed were a good fit. But I think some people listening right now might be stuck on stage 4. How do we please and retain our clients? So just based on that, I mean, what steps should we take if their current client retention or even growth strategies aren't yielding the results they're looking for?
Yeah, so it's going to come down to, relationship building ultimately, and then offer building. Those are the 2, like, try not to overcomplicate this, guys, right? It's literally, I say this all the time, more often than not, the best communicator gets hired, not the best practitioner, right? More often than not, they're auditioning personalities, and clients are hiring, folks that they're going to enjoy dealing with. Because there's no shortage of people that can get the job done, right? That's table stakes. That's the bare minimum for even being in the conversation about getting hired, right? So, I think too many freelancers hang their hat on, I'm really good at this thing. It's like, okay, well, you and a million other people are really good at this thing, right? It's more about relationships. It's about building those relationships. So, it's seeking out that intel about their objectives, their goals for their business, their immediate objectives for the next quarter or 2, but also like, hey, what's your vision for this thing in the next 5 years? Like really get an understanding of what they're up to, and then speak to that, right? Build out offers that make sense for that, but also that magical first 5 minutes of a meeting that we discussed. It doesn't all have to be all business. It can also be, hey, didn't your kid start 2nd grade last week? How's that going? Or did you mentioned your wife loves XYZ coffee brand. I just had some of that this morning. Like you start getting the personal details because when it comes time for to celebrate a project, or when it's gifting season, what have you. You can send them something personal, or if you don't want to be mailing things, you can email them. Hey, I remember you mentioned that this is happening this week. I hope it goes well, right? You're making friends, you're making buddies, so it's all part of it.
Yeah, you make a really good point, because as a 9-to-5 employee, you just have to be good at your job. Like, that's it. Like, you have to be somewhat likable so you don't get fired. But like, if you're just good at your job, you're in a good spot. But as a freelancer, yeah, you do have to have some kind of savvy, some kind of business savvy, build those relationships, those little check-ins on the birthday. Hey, how was your kid's softball game? So on and so forth. Like, it does have an impact. So those soft skills, in addition to your hard skills that you're selling, are super important. But you've mentioned offers of free time a few times, and I want to go deeper on this too, because this is a challenge, right? Like, you can have a very, very niche offer that a few clients are going to enjoy and pay a lot for, or more diverse, so you can capture a larger audience. So how can freelancers balance deepening versus diversifying their client base to reduce dependency on just a few clients?
Yeah, I mean, I understand there is a lot of hesitancy around niching down and around getting too specific with an offer, and I get where that comes from. But again, and I don't want to keep using abundancy mindset here, because I know some people think all that stuff is kind of BS, but it is. Like, I think folks don't realize just how many people are out there solving the same problem, right? So if the more specific you can get with an offer about the problem you solve, the more success you're going to see. And also the more you get to charge for it, right? The more the closer you are to a problem, the more specific you are about a problem, the more you get to charge for it. Give you an example, right? This is a complete hypothetical, but say you are an independent restaurant owner who is struggling with, wants to optimize for the table value, the amount of money people spend at their restaurant, and is looking for somebody to help with menu design or something like that. They go on Fiverr looking for a designer, right? Now, they have an option between a designer who has 5,000 reviews on Fiverr, who's a general designer, has a bunch of examples of websites, of flyers, of logos, what have you. And there's another freelancer on Fiverr who has 27 reviews, and their offer is, I design menus for small to medium-sized restaurants that maximize ticket value, right? Now, you're that restaurant owner. Who are you going to hire? Who's your first look going to be? Well, this person's been doing it forever, 5,000 reviews. They look at all the work they've done. This person only has 27, but they do nothing but solve that specific problem that you're trying to solve for your business. And that's the benefit of getting specific, right? If you kind of out of a scarcity, or concern for your business, you go broad, you end up you've got a lot of competition, right? And you've got to stand out. But if you get specific, then it will help both inbound and outbound marketing efficacy.
Yeah, it's funny in regards to being specific. I know of a woman who sells online courses for how you can create an urban chicken coop. And you'd be surprised how many people want to build an urban chicken coop. So she has that market cornered, because there's no one else giving services around that. So yeah, you might think your niche is weird or unnecessary, but I know someone who's selling chicken coop courses that'll tell you differently. But I want to go deeper on scaling your business through relationships, because it's not always through your clients. It's the people that you meet at events or even on certain social media platforms. So how else can you build strong relationships in a way that doesn't seem like you're projecting lack or scarcity, that it feels mutually beneficial for everyone involved?
Right. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Building a relationship with a client is one thing, but you can also be building relationships with your fellow practitioners. You can be building relationships. I mean, you're a freelancer on a project. They've brought in another freelancer that's going to take care of the thing that's tangential to the thing that you do, right? You're going to be making a buddy with that person too, because you two get to refer your customers to one another for life, right? That's important as well. But I would say that the crucial. Let me give it. Here's an example of one of our clients shared with me, and will continue to share with me, emails of people, studios pitching them on what we offer and saying, you know, we're happy to underbid, you know, whatever your current provider is doing, just to show you what we, you know, what we're capable of, and all that. And the COO of this agency gleefully sends me these emails, not to say, you know, keep doing good because these people are coming for your job. He's sending me those because he's like, they could offer me anything, and I wouldn't change because you guys are so in our business. You know how our clients operate. You know how our how our account managers operate. You know, you have a shorthand with each individual rep. You know, if a client comes in with this needs to happen. It's like all this stuff that we've developed in this relationship with this agency over the last several years, is worth its weight in gold. It's worth it to them to spend, 40% more on us than somebody else, because if they go with the other option, they have to spend 3 years on that person, getting them with the program, getting them on the same page with all their customers. So it's an intangible, but it's value, and it's value you get to charge for, by the way. If it's as a relationship grows, hopefully you're making them a little bit more money, but your value is increasing, and when you add value, you charge for it, right? So but it's definitely, it is a relationships business. It's never not been, and it never will not be, right? And people that identify that and optimize for it, build those relationships with intentionality. It doesn't happen on accident. It's not lucky, right? It's something that you design. But the folks that figure that out and design those relationships are the ones that really win big time.
Yeah. I agree. I would tell another story, but I have some live questions coming in. I want to make sure I get to them instead of me talking about my life.
We'll do it later. You and I we'll just have a call where we talk all Terry stories.
There you go. That sounds pleasant. So next question, the question that came in is, how do you balance the need for new clients with the maintenance of existing relationships? So obviously you want to get new clients coming in, but you don't want to jeopardize losing your current one. So how do we make this work?
That's a difficult one to answer, because it's going to be different for everybody, right? It's again, going back to this freelance thing, is choose your own adventure. It's some people who maybe only are working with 3 or 4 stage 4 clients, lifetime clients. They maybe need to put a little more TLC into their marketing and sales efforts. Go out and acquire some more stage 1s, stage 3s, and get them in there, so that they can build out their client roster to nurture and build a relationship with. If you've got or if you're coming to this conversation and you already have 30, 40 clients you've worked with this year, take a breather on the marketing front. Let's work on how to now monetize these or optimize these 30 or 40 for the next one, right? So it really depends on kind of where you're at, and it's probably something that you'll have to check in on every year that you do this, or every 6 months, right? Is okay, well, how many are coming through the door? How many am I building relationships with? Where do I need to spend more time?
Yeah. Your point about taking a break in the marketing when you already have a lot of clients rings true. I remember the other day I was working on my LinkedIn post, and a client or a prospect was waiting for me to send over a proposal, but I was still working on my post. But I'm like, dude, like, you post so you can get clients. Like, why are you doing this? Like, just go send the proposal out. So thanks for reminding me and everybody else, like, hey, like, you got to make sure that you're satisfying who you currently have. And maybe sometimes you don't have to market as hard because you already have a good roster built up.
Yeah.
All right. So we got time for one more question that came in, and I'm going to try to get this one correctly. That you can share with us.
It's ultimately, I think the example I gave earlier, talking about how you know, how just our presence in their operation for so long, you know, brought enough value for them to say no to any question or anybody coming in at a cheaper rate, right? It's just that the value of those relationships is so strong. I think also just the first few times that I realized that building a building a new offer is on me, not on them. I think were big lessons for me, where it's like, okay, cool. I'm the one that's supposed to bring these ideas to the table, you know, and continually be handing them solutions to act on, and they might not all be winners, but they'll all at least stimulate a conversation or initiate a conversation about maybe something else, right? The way I like to do that, to make it practical, one of my favorite ways to do that is if I do a big, sexy piece of work for a client, you know, maybe it's for a brand that people recognize, or you know, or just the work itself is really, really great. I'll send that out to everybody, you know, on my client roster, and with a personalized email, and I'll say, hey, we just finished this thing up with Netflix, or we just finished this thing up with a brand you've never heard of, but it looks awesome, right? And it immediately made me think of you, right? And I'll tell them why. It's because you mentioned, I remember 3 months ago, last time we chatted, you mentioned that you were solving for XYZ, and this is the same thing that they're solving for, and this is how they executed on it. And I would love to do the same execution for you, right? And so it's, they you know, can we just chat for 15 minutes about it? And they might decide, no, we're not interested in that execution, but I'm glad you emailed us, because there is something else that we need for you, right? So at least it initiates the conversation. But that is, it's, you know, it is on you to continue to bring them new excuses to work with you, for sure.
Yeah. Love it. Jamie, this has been a great conversation. Just thank you for your time and all the insights you had to share today. We really do appreciate you.
For sure. I'm happy to be here anytime.
As we wrap up this year's summit, we want to extend a thanks to all of you for joining us. We hope you gained valuable strategies for navigating the freelance world and come away feeling inspired, having learned more about the future of work. A special thank you to all our speakers and panelists today. Even though we're concluding the summit, we encourage you to take a moment today and feel proud of the work you've done, the path you've chosen, and celebrate being a freelancer and part of this community. You are part of a global community that celebrates your talent, dedication, and resilience. And we encourage you to explore more ways to connect, whether it's engaging with the fun social filters we launched for International Freelancer Day, or diving deeper into what our community offers at connect.fiverr.com. Until next year, thank you for joining us.
Niko insecure na hisi nanichezea ila siko sure. Insecure, maswali mengi akilini siwezi tatua. Niko insecure na hisi nanichezea ila siko sure. Insecure, maswali mengi akilini siwezi tatua. Niko downgrading, ananifanya na feel niko downgrading. Baby girl, mbona fanya hivyo? Unanirudisha paka ulipofika sivyo. Kila time, kila day, na feel baby girl kama unaniplay. Na tukienda holiday, hata simu wezi zima, ni kwa nini babe? No, 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 nainua mikono nimesare. No, 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 it's like your love is on a holiday. Niko insecure, na hisi ananichezea ila siko sure. Insecure, maswali mengi akilini ila siwezi jua. Niko insecure, na hisi ananichezea ila siko sure. Niko insecure, maswali mengi akilini ila siwezi jua. Yeah, 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 yeah. Siwezi jua. Hey, hey, ila siwezi jua. Hey, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. Maswali mengi akilini ila siwezi jua.
See the green light, sure, it tells me go.